everybody, welcome to Bura. In this episode, I'm going to be asking the question, does tech actually make life better for you and humanity? All right, welcome back. So I've wanted to do this video for a long time here, and in the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of money printing, and that money printing has gone straight into tech in one way or another. And the question I wanted to ask was, does it make life better? Are we in a better spot than we were 10, 12, 14, 16 years ago, etc.? So let's take a time frame from about, let's say, 2000 to today, 2022, which is 22 years time span. And if at any point in time, which was the best place to enjoy technology and have the limiting effects or negative effects of technology here? So let's take a look at the first thing here. The first thing is that money printing has gone into tech for one reason or another. So after the great financial crisis, a lot of money printing or quantitative easing has been issued by the Federal Reserve, which is the United States Central Bank. And what that does is that allows big players to loan out money. Now, that money is loaned to a lot of tech companies, right? These are tech startups. So some of these companies are absolutely worth the money and others are not. So what that means is that not only is there a lot of money being put into startups, but these startups have to advertise themselves. And where do they go for advertising? They've gone to Facebook and Google, right? And 40 cents of every VC dollar has gone to these companies. What this has done is create inflation in certain areas and deflation in others. So the learn to code movement has been mostly funded by quantitative easing. Now you have to really think about that. The more quantitative easing that has been done, the more tech jobs have been, well, basically better. And it's because money printing has been going straight to the tech companies, at least through the roundabout way of hedge funds funding startups and those startups buying advertising dollars on Google and Facebook. So a lot of things have happened in the last 12 years, and it's kind of good to have a bit of a retrospective here. So there are things, if you look into the past, are better than they are today. Now, I'm not one of those people that kind of longs for the past here, but mostly if you look at progress, today is the best day to live as a human. However, if you look at certain areas in the past, they have been a little bit better than they are today. Now, I want to reiterate that, again, progress today and living today is better than it was 10 years ago on the whole, but we can look at a few things that were probably a little bit better 10, 20 years ago. And the question is tech and all that money printing, was it worthwhile? Okay? And that's the real question I really want to answer with this video. So if you go back to 2010, a lot of the same companies are around. We have Facebook, or now Meta, we have Google, we have YouTube, which is again a part of Google, we have Apple, we have basically almost the exact same companies that we have today. But there's a difference, right? They're not as big, their reach wasn't as prevalent, and I would argue, because of this, their effects on society were much more diminished. So because in the last 12 years, tech wasn't as big a part of people's lives as it is today. And the reason for this is that, again, they're so big, and it's because, as people move towards technology, it creates a convenience factor, and that convenience factor makes things a lot easier. So for example, if you have a washer and dryer, it's hard to not go and live in a place without it, right? And the same thing has happened with tech. Now, some things are, a little bit more addictive about technology than others, but one of the things I actually really like about technology in the last 10 years is, well, cameras, right? I can talk to anyone over Zoom. Skype 10 years ago, 12 years ago, was not really as good as it is today, and video quality isn't as good as it is today. Also, creating anything, whether it's games or music or videos or writing or whatever it is a lot easier on the technology today. And I have to say that if you really like videos, right? Video quality has gone up quite a bit. You can take a look at YouTube maybe 12 years ago, and it's nowhere near as it is today. The quality of content has gone up quite a bit here. Now, again, I'm a little bit older than the average YouTuber, but there's something about 12 years ago and even going back further than that is something that I miss. And one of the things that I really miss is that there's a lot more discussion and there's a lot less polarization. And When I'm talking about political polarization, I'm really talking to Facebook here. Facebook is probably the worst company that has made this problem worse. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and going back even 22 years ago to the year 2000, things were a lot less polarized. And I absolutely like that a lot better here. I used to have conversations with a bunch of different people on a bunch of different topics, and it didn't end up devolving to, well, basically a shouting match, right? And I think, Twitter and Facebook are mostly to blame for this. And Facebook is absolutely to blame for this. And the question is that all that money printing made Facebook what it is today. And there wasn't really any checks and balances on what Facebook could do. And of course, Facebook is probably one of the most toxic brands, or Meta. They had to change their name because Facebook is such a toxic brand. So one of the things that I think was better in the past is less polarization. You could have better conversations with people, and things weren't as polarized as they are today. And it's becoming a really big problem here. And so if there's one thing that I think was better, is the less polarization. So one of the things that's actually really good about technology and games today is that they are a lot less addictive in kind of the bad ways. So, when I first started programming, it was really during the iPhone boom, and there was a lot of companies that would hire literally people from casinos, and games like Farmville and whatnot, those were extremely addictive games. Now, I think people are gaming just as much, if not more, than they were in the past, but at least they're not using those casino type tactics as they used to be. And I think this is really good because, I remember playing these games and saying, well, why was I playing this? And so, when I play a video game, I do it and I mostly enjoy what I'm doing and what I'm playing. And I'm not really playing it because of some weird mechanic. I really just like playing it because I like playing the game. And I think that's something that's actually quite a bit better than in the past. So the other thing is that if you went back to the technology, let's say 10, 12 years ago, would it be any good? Well, I think you would have mostly the same things that you would have today. It just, wouldn't be as fast and wouldn't be as high quality. The thing is that today, everything is just so good. Now, the quality of content is really good, but that also comes at a technical expense. The web is so bloated today, and one of the reasons why it's so bloated is because there's framework upon framework to create perfection upon perfection here. So there's a simple web movement, which I absolutely really like, and the reason I like the movement is because everything is so simple. We don't need to have all the bells and whistles for every simple website. If you just want to have a personal blog, it can be written in pure HTML and CSS. There's no reason to have it in a major WordPress that has a bunch of frameworks, etc. And this is one thing that I think will probably come out in the next decade, is a kind of a return to simplicity. And it's a really big issue. And the more simple and lightweight kind of frameworks are going to be, I think that's going to be a really big thing in the next decade, because people are going to say, wait a minute, I don't need all this extra stuff. Now, another thing that has really become prevalent is the idea of subscriptions here. And subscriptions make perfect sense from a business model, specifically as a software as a service model. Now, I know a lot of people hate subscriptions, but you have really two options. One, you can pay a la carte and you can own your software and pay for all the updates, or B, you can subscribe to it and get updates automatically. And a lot of people who are old enough to remember that you used to be able to buy Photoshop and that's yours, but now you have to subscribe to it. And if you have a team of people, it's going to be a lot of money to subscribe to the Adobe Creative Cloud, and that's going to, well, basically eat into your bottom line here. Now, as a person who makes software and uses software all the time, basically every day, I know how hard it is to make the software. And I know that, as a consumer, I have to kind of either pick between those two options here. So the thing is that a lot of these companies in the past didn't actually go to the subscription, right? They couldn't because no one would buy it. And that's another thing now, is that everything is on a subscription, and subscriptions really do eat into your bottom line. So you really have to be diligent about which subscriptions you have. But at the same time, though, if you work in tech, then subscriptions are great because it's going to keep your job afloat. So the other thing is that there are features in some Tesla cars that are there, but you have to pay a subscription to unlock them. And this goes to my next point, right to repair and the ability to own your actual device here. Now, if we go back 22 years, all the way back to the year 2000, a lot of people could own physical products here. Like, I own this mouse, I'm not paying a subscription for it, and I can do whatever I want with this mouse. Now, of course, this is just a mouse or a trackball or whatever, and this is not really that important here, but my Mac, which I'm recording this on, is going to be very difficult to service. And I think this is another thing that's going to happen in the next decade, is that the right to repair movement is really going to take full steam here. And the ability to, basically unlock any of the features in your devices that you purchase for. And I think this is a really good move here. I think tech companies have definitely overstepped their bounds here. And of course, one of the reasons why they can do this is because the money printing, because you have to remember, the Federal Reserve is basically the bank of the United States. And when they print money, they can print so much cash that it's almost impossible for kind of the real economy to kind of match that. So because of the money printing, one of the unintended consequences of that is that all the technology startups have made these tech giants way bigger than they probably should be. Now, again, you go 10, 20 years ago, Apple existed, Google existed, all of these companies still existed, but they were far less powerful. And because of the money printing, they have become a lot more powerful. So if you take the money printing away, a lot of these tech companies won't become as powerful. And the reason why it's a good thing is you never want power to be consolidated in between individuals or corporations. It's really, you want power to be distributed as much as humanly possible. And now, of course, you can never distribute the power evenly, but the free market usually accounts for this. Now, of course, I don't want to get into a huge economic debate here, but for the most part, would technology be still prevalent today? And absolutely it is. The more technology improves, the more we will use it here. And the thing is that I would say technology is a bit overbought, meaning that it should probably come down a bit. Not only in terms of power, but in terms of market cap as well. Now, a lot of that's going to go into other things like crypto. Now, crypto and technology are the same thing, but the thing is that Apple and Google, they're all a different, more centralized version, and Web3 and blockchain is decentralized. So that's another thing that I'm predicting in the next 10 years, or 8 years since we're already in 2022, but at least by 2030, is that decentralization is going to be a lot bigger than it is today. So what's really the conclusion of this here? Well, I would say that the negative effects where things were actually better in the past, where there was much less political polarization and there was much less frameworks, and you probably had more control over your devices. However, can we go back to that? And would it be better for everyone? Well, the answer is probably no. All your stuff that you're doing with your computers and your software is definitely much better than it was 10 or 20 years ago. The things that you can do on a computer nowadays is absolutely mind-blowing. And I think that's absolutely a good thing. However, the thing is, I understand that quality comes at a cost here, but at the same time, though, I think a lot of concessions will probably have to be made. For example, the right to repair. I want to be able to repair my iPhone screen by taking it into a third-party shop. I don't want to have to go to the Apple Store to do this. And if I want a feature in my Tesla that I can use, well, I should just be able to use it without paying for a subscription. These digital locks really aren't good from the consumer's point of view. And I bet you for the next 8 years or 10 years, consumers are going to probably get the better end of the deal. And it's because tech has been a little bit overreaching here. And we can see that again and again with some of the legislation in Europe and South Korea, etc. So in conclusion, I think life today is the best it's ever been for humanity here. However, you can go look at the past and there were a few things that were a bit better. One thing I did not touch on was the cost of living, and that's going to be a whole separate video. The cost of living was much better 10, 20 years ago, and I'm going to deep dive into why that is. And a lot of the same topics are going to come up with money printing and tech jobs, etc. But I want to make that its own video. So that concludes this video. I want to know your thoughts down below. Was life better in the past, or is it better today? Are there something about the past that you miss? If there is, I want to know about it. So please comment on this channel. This channel does not get enough comments. And please share this on Reddit and all the other places. I really want this video to get a lot more views than a lot of my other videos. It would really help me out if you like and subscribe and share. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.